Hello and welcome. One more time, my name is Alex Centeno. And in our last episode, we took a look at how to automate things with Python in Davinci Resolve. In fact, we called that video Automate Everything in Davinci Resolve. However, that's kind of misleading a little bit because we didn't do everything. So in this video, we're still not going to do everything, but we're going to do a lot more. In this video, what we're going to do is probably one of the most important things you can automate inside of Davinci Resolve. We are going to color grade. And the second thing, if we have time, because we want to do this quickly, but if we have time, we'll also use a template as opposed to starting from scratch. So instead of just creating a timeline like we did before, putting all the clips inside of a timeline and starting from there, we're gonna automate stuff to the point that we just grab a template that has already, for example, a lower third or a logo in the corner, and we add the clips. And so all we need to do is cut and deliver. All right, if you're excited, I'm excited. Let's do this. All right, I am here in Davinci Resolve, and I'm so happy, by the way, that you guys like this video and subscribed already. So anyways, let's go ahead and grab a terminal and let's take a look. In fact, I think we're gonna do first the second example and then the first example. Let me explain what I mean by that. All right. We are going to bring in a template to actually create our project, and then we're going to automatically apply a grade. That makes much more sense than to try to apply a grade to something that it doesn't exist and then explain how to duplicate or create a template. So we're going to start with the end, and this is how we do it. We import some libraries, as we saw in the previous video, and then we're going to define a template to use. This is very straightforward, but what you do is that you go to your project database, like right here, and then you would take a template. You would create a video like normal, create a template, and then you would export your project. And that's going to give you basically a template to work with. All right, so I have done that already, and I have located that template in this folder in my computer. Then I am using my OS library to actually join the root, which is the path, I guess, the location, the folder that holds my template, with the name of the template itself, which I named template 1, and you can name it whatever you prefer. Number 2 is that we're going to ask the user for a project name. So we're going to define whatever name we want for the new video. And what we do is that we are basically going to assign a name called DRP for that project based on the name that they give us. So we're going to assign it to the variable project name, and then we're going to join the template root with the project name and then the extension DRP. Then what we do is we take the template file and then we copy it to the project file. And this time it's good to just let you guys know that some of this research, because the documentation is very, very little, as you probably have seen already on this Python inside of Davinci Resolve. So some of this documentation came from a website called tonyteaches.tech. So I just want to give a good shout out to Tony and appreciation for what he found out and how he does things. So check it out. Again, tonyteaches.tech. All right. From here, we duplicate the template file into the new project file, and then we start basically doing what we did before in the previous tutorial. We bring in Resolve, we assign it to an object that we call Resolve, then we get a project manager from that object, and we assign it to Project Manager. Then we're going to import our project, the project that we just created. Then we're going to take the project manager and load the project and assign it to project. And then we just check to see if the project was able to load. Then we create a media pool and media storage objects. Pretty straightforward, since this is what we did last time in the previous video. Then we go ahead and ask for the location of our clips. So the clips that we are going to add to this particular video that we're creating. So we're going to ask for the input of the user saying, hey, give us the path of your clips. And then we're going to use the media storage object to add those items to the media pool. And then we're going to call them clips. Then we try to get a current timeline. So we name it timeline. And if not, then we create an empty one. So basically, take media pool, create empty timeline that we're going to call main timeline if there's not a timeline there, but there is, because we're using a template. So this is not going to work. This is not going to happen. But in any case, it's sometimes good to have fail safes. So if there's no timeline, then create one, although this is not going to run. And something important here is that you may notice that sometimes when you're running some functions, there are some spaces or tabs here, indentation, that we're using. And it is important, as you learn Python, that you respect this, because in other languages, some things are really not that important. For example, PHP doesn't really care about the indentation, except in some parts. But for the most part, if you had this in PHP, you could do it without regard for the spacing, and in Python doesn't work like that. So just be careful of keeping the right tabs inside of those constructs. And here is no exception. So we have an if statement, and so we have a tab that starts this process inside of the if statement. Then we finish that, then we just basically append the timeline. We append the clips to the timeline with a method called append to timeline. We grab the clips that we have here, and we use the media pool object to call that method. And we just assign it to append it, but we don't really need this anymore. So that's it. Let's go ahead and run it. And let's get rid of this, and let's see how this works. P, although again, per our previous tutorial, you would do Python space and then the name of your file. In my case, in my computer, I have simplified it so that I can just do P and then the name of the file. So P, let's see, it's P1. So P1, PY, like this. It's going to ask me for a video name, and I'm going to call it sample1. And then he's going to ask me, well, where are my clips? And I'm going to give it the location of my clips. And there you go. So let's take a look at what it did. So I went ahead, created my project called sample1. And then inside of sample1, it actually created my entire thing. So my template actually adds this nice intro text that says incredible heading, and I can of course go ahead and change this in my video. But as you can see, it added my clips to the timeline automatically in video 1. So this channel is the last part that it included. And then it added also a logo, the 7 Aviation logo here, and then the ending credits as well here. And this is a very simple example because I have those 2 clips only, but I could have many clips in that source folder, and basically all I have to do now is just do my cutting and editing, and I can just reframe this video, but everything is loading from a template, so a lot easier than starting from scratch. That's pretty cool. Now for the second part of the tutorial today is, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could also grade this automatically so that we don't have to start from scratch in that sense either? Because there is the potential of actually just using LUTs, and some people do that, and that's perfectly fine if you have the appropriate LUT and you have the grade that you want inside of that LUT. So that works. But at the same time, you may have a node tree that you like to work with and it's already ready to go, or you are shooting with the same camera and you already know what kind of transformation. It can be a color transform, or it can be a LUT, or it can be a combination, film emulation. I mean, the sky's the limit. So if you have a complicated node tree as opposed to just a simple LUT, then maybe you want to automate that part. And this is how we do it. Let's go ahead and open our second example. So I'm just going to open P2 and show you what we're going to do here. All right. So from here, I'm just going to import 2 libraries. I'm going to assign Resolve. And then this is the way that I'm going to call it. So in this case, I am going to, instead of prompting the user, I'm just going to, from the get-go, ask for the DRX location and the grade mode. So the location of our DRX. So what is a DRX? A DRX is our grade. So every time that you have a still inside of Davinci Resolve, you can export that still, and it is going to be saved as a DRX, which is just a file extension that saves the directions of those nodes, so it can recreate the still. And you can share those node grades within different computers. You can share with other people, and you can also save it for later, as we're doing here. So I have saved one called the Summer Collection Cinematic Autumn -1, and then it has like some numbers grabbed from where exactly I was grabbing the still when I was grading this. So, and then it has the extension DRX. Then we have the grade mode. Grade mode can be 0, 1, or 2. 0 means that no keyframes are going to be respected. 1 means that the source is going to be time code aligned. And 2 is going to mean that it's going to align them to the start of the frames. You don't have to worry about this too much. In this case, we're always going to do it with no keyframes. So you pretty much always are going to be using a 0. All right, and then we have a failsafe here. If like the person that enters the code here doesn't enter the 2 parameters, then go ahead and just remind us, or remind the person to enter those. We grab those parameters. One is the path to the DRX, the other one is the grade mode, and then we define 2 functions, and then we call the function. We define 2 functions, and then we call one of the functions. The first one is applying the DRX to all timelines, and the second one applying the DRX to all timeline clips. And as you can see, this one is being called inside of here. So let's start by talking about this one. So this one takes 3 parameters. It's going to take the timeline, the path, and the grade mode. So we're going to get a track count, so the number of tracks that are of type video, and we're going to assign them to a variable called track count. And then we're going to run a loop, and this loop is going to be from 1 all the way to the number of tracks plus 1. So let's say that we have, let's say 3 tracks, then it's going to go ahead and add 3 plus 1. So it's going to be 4. So it's going to run from 1 to 4. And basically it's going to run those times and takes the timeline object, gets the item in the track video, and assigns the clips to a variable called clips. And then applies the grade from the DRX that we gave it. So it goes, grabs the path, and applies the DRX to those clips in the grade mode that we defined, which again is 0. And if it doesn't work, then it returns false, but otherwise it just continues and then finally finishes the loop. All right, so now let's take a look at what this one does. So this one takes the resolve path and grade mode. We're going to call the project manager, and we're going to call the project. So we grab the current project and assign it to project. If we don't have the project, then return false. Then we grab the timeline counts. So not only are we going to go and iterate through the tracks, we're also going to iterate through the timelines. So it does the same thing. It counts the number of timelines and then it iterates through them. It gets the first one, which is time index plus 1, and then continues changing for each iteration index, and so it keeps increasing this number. And so it takes the current timeline and then applies the timeline clips function to that timeline. In other words, it runs this function in every timeline. So all this function does is that it grabs all timelines in our project and runs this for all the tracks inside of each timeline. All right, and then all that is left is to actually call it, because these were the definitions of those functions. So then all we have to do is just call the function, apply DRX to all timelines, resolve DRX path, and grade mode. So you can see that this is the definition. It gets called here. If it doesn't work, then print unable to apply still for DRX file to all timelines, and then just exit. That's just the case if it doesn't, if it's not able to apply that. All right, let's go ahead and run it. So, and I'm gonna actually make a mistake on purpose, and I'm just going to call it without my parameters just to show you what happens. Please include a path to your DRX and a grade mode. All right. I'm gonna do another error here. I'm gonna enter only my DRX, but not my grade mode. Again, it tells me, hey, you need to include a grade mode. So anyways, let's go ahead and run it. Perfect. It goes to my current project, and as you can see, it grabbed here, and to my actual videos, it applied my grade, the actual grade of my DRX file. And it has, for every video inside of that track, it actually has my entire node tree. It has a LUT, it has some nodes for saturation, it has the color warper, it has contrast and saturation, exposure, it could have color transformations, what we were talking about before. It can do everything directly here. So you don't have to start again from scratch. And this, of course, is a lot faster than trying to do it from scratch. Alrighty, we covered a lot. I hope that this has been helpful. These two videos, the previous tutorial and this one, should be a great introduction to the world of automation inside of Davinci Resolve. Like I said in the first video, documentation is not super clear, not super great, and not to the fault of Davinci Resolve themselves, I would say. Like it's just, it's kind of a topic that is a little obscure and it's becoming more relevant. In other words, some people don't really know how to do this, and videographers are starting to do much more marketing work, and therefore speed is becoming much more important as opposed to just grading everything from scratch. So a colorist using this is beneficial, but probably not super beneficial, because using templates for them is probably something that they'll never do. Editors, I don't know that they will use this either a whole lot, unless they actually prefer to work with their own grades as opposed to just applying a LUT and doing their edit and then sending it back to the studio. But for marketers and independent videographers and people that do the whole process, let's say shooting a commercial video for a company, and then they do the editing, and then they do the color grading for that same project, and maybe they even do the same with motion graphics. Maybe you are in a position where you have to do everything from the creation of the video, shooting it, to the editing. So you do pre-production, production, and post-production, all for delivery in a channel like YouTube. If that's the case, then these tools that we've learned here are going to be super valuable, because let's say that you have 5 clients, and then you're doing these videos for those clients many times, then of course you're going to save a lot of time by using templates like this, and a lot of time by using the automation of your color correction and color grading. I hope that this has been helpful and that it has truly added value, and that is beneficial to you. If it has, please take a moment. I know that it is a little cumbersome because you have to log in and all that, but please take a moment to like the video or comment. We try to respond to all the comments, and if you didn't like it, then also please give it a thumbs down, and then comment of what we could do to make it better. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.